Hi, I'm Chris Sangster, and welcome back to the studio. On November 7th, Apple released a major update to Logic Pro in version 10.8, and it has been getting a lot of praise on the internet. The headline-grabbing new feature is Mastering Assistant, an AI-powered mastering plugin that automatically analyzes your music and applies EQ and dynamics processing to master your mix. In theory, this is a really cool idea, and I have no fundamental issue with using AI to analyze your music and offer a starting point in terms of EQ and dynamics. But I think it should be just that, a starting point. So with that in mind, I have some real issues with how this has been implemented in Logic's Mastering Assistant. Let's dive in. My biggest issue with Mastering Assistant is that it does not offer a gain reduction meter. This is a crucial piece of information you need to know in order to understand how the dynamic processing, aka the limiter, is affecting your music. You get a true peak and a LUFS meter, which is great, but no indication of how much gain reduction is being applied to your song. The limiter is the most important tool in mastering, and it seems odd to not have more information about this tool in Mastering Assistant. And this leads to my next issue. The one control that they do give you for the limiter, the loudness knob, makes absolutely no sense to me. It goes from +1 to -1 in increments of 0.01. But by my testing, a setting of +1 results in a +7 overall short-term LUFS change, and a setting of -1 can decrease the short-term LUFS by up to -10 dB. I understand they want to simplify the limiter controls to make them easier to use, but why not keep the scale of the knob relative to the actual gain increase or decrease? It seems odd to me to offer a LUFS meter, but then offer very little real control over the tool that directly affects those numbers. And my final gripe about the dynamics section is that they are using -14 LUFS as the default target loudness. I do not think you should be mastering to a target loudness, full stop. Understanding that streaming services are using a certain loudness level to do their normalization is very important to understanding how your music will be affected when uploading to a particular streaming site. But it is in no way a target to be aimed for. And Apple agrees with me on this. Here is what Apple's own documentation on Mastering Assistant has to say on the matter.
When you adjust the loudness knob to its center position, the output typically registers at around -14 LUFS. This is typically the target loudness for many streaming platforms. However, in the mastering process, adhering strictly to this value isn't always the best approach. Instead, mastering engineers aim for a loudness level that best complements the specific mix. The optimal loudness can vary considerably based on the genre and the unique characteristics of the project.
And I agree 1000% with those last two sentences. Which begs the question, why default every song to -14 LUFS? Apple clearly understands this is not the way a mastering engineer would approach it, and it's certainly not what I would recommend. In fact, for most pop and rock mixes, -14 LUFS is going to be way too quiet. So why not adjust the target loudness based upon the analysis of the song? Surely the AI could do this. And this is a really big deal because this plugin is aimed at newer engineers and producers or those who have not developed their skills as mastering engineers yet. They will most likely not be able to understand the nuanced approach needed to set proper overall levels for each song. Furthermore, most people are not going to take the time to read the Logic manual to learn Apple's true recommendations on the matter, which again, I do agree with. What I don't agree with is setting the default of Mastering Assistant up in a way that, in my opinion, will actively make people's music too quiet to be competitive with their reference material. Hey, I'm all for quieter masters and ending the loudness wars, but this is not the way to do it, Apple. A smaller but still important issue I have with Mastering Assistant is how limited your control over the EQ section is. You only get a high shelf, a low shelf, and a fixed Q bell curve to make adjustments after the automatically applied EQ curve. That is just not enough control to make meaningful tweaks to the EQ. You should be able to control every point of the EQ after the fact. Your only option now would be to put an EQ plugin maybe before Mastering Assistant and try to compensate for it with that. But that is just like a clunky workaround and honestly just begging for phase issues. Plus, can anyone tell me if this is a phase linear EQ or not? I have not been able to find that answer. And one final thing, the way Mastering Assistant is only available as a plugin on your stereo bus just feels too limiting to me. I wish you could put it on any track or bus in your session. In a typical album mastering session, I would want to be able to put it on each track so I could have different settings for each song. And if I was using it in a mix session, I would want to be able to put it on the aux track that I use as my master bus and keep the default stereo bus free for metering and sonar works. Alright, so this is a lot more complaining than I usually do in these videos, but I'm always going to be honest with you. I love Logic Pro, but I'm not afraid to call out features that I don't like or think could be improved. Mastering Assistant could be a great tool, but it is just not there yet. I hope in a future update we get a few things. A gain reduction meter, full control over the limiter settings just like we have in the adaptive limiter plugin, full control over the EQ curve after it has been generated, and the ability to use it anywhere in the session just like any other plugin. I think Mastering Assistant could not only be a great all-in-one mastering solution with these changes, but could also be a great teaching tool for people to learn how things like master bus EQ, stereo widening, and final stage limiting are working together to achieve the result of a properly mastered song. I will say though, there are some absolutely amazing features that Apple has added to Logic Pro 10.8. Beat breakers, sample alchemy, drummer regions on instrument tracks, 32-bit recording capability, and much more. It really is the best version of Logic Pro yet. Get subscribed here or follow me over on TikTok to see more about all of these great new features. Hit the like button if you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you at the studio next time. Thanks.